I've got a whole lot of brutality for you this weekend. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, John Barbas. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for this week's album art of the week. It's the weekend. That means we've got new metal albums to talk about. And boy, do we, it's stacked this week. So before I bring you my top 5 favorite, let's talk about some of the big releases. Yeah, I'm stoked about this one. Tesseract, War of Being. This is one of those bands that scratches a lot of itches for me. Prog nerd, check. Super heavy, check. Atmospheric, check. Beautiful, check. Futuristic, modern sounding, yeah, I love this band, check it out. And at long last, we've got a new album from Brujeria. Esto es Brujeria, death metal from Mexico. And we've got a new live album from the legendary OGs Mayhem called Demonic Rites. If you're into Mayhem, you already know what's up. If you don't know about Mayhem, let me give you a little something. Don't become one of those noobs. Every generation, we get a noob generation that learns the Mayhem story and thinks it's the most hardcore thing they've ever heard, because it pretty much is, and they get obsessed. And then they call people who aren't true cults scene tourists, even though they themselves have just now found out about Mayhem. Even though I've been a metalhead for 20 plus years and you have only been a metalhead for 2 years, you're calling me a scene tourist. Yeah, I'm not a part of a scene. I'm a hermit in the cabin in the woods. I've spent way more time in nature than you have, because you've only done it for your band photos, for your solo bedroom black metal project. Don't be one of those fucking dorks. Sorry about that, y'all. I love you and I love metal. So let's go with the next one. Metalcore giants War of Ages have a new one called Dominion. Really heavy stuff here. Make sure you check that one out. And lastly, before we do the top 5, this one was huge for me. I was really excited for it. I got a sneak preview of this new album from Baroness called Stone. And you know what that means? That means my written review is already published in Metal Digest. You can find links to all of my writings in the description. And if you're subscribed, then you might have already seen my sneak preview of the album on the podcast. And you'll already know how excited I was for this. You're not going to hear very much that sounds like this in metal. Go get Stone from Baroness. Now let's do the top 5. Coming in at number 5, Slave Steel with Infieri. This is death metal from Italy. And when I say death metal, this is that lip curling, looks like you just smelled something bad, look of disgust on your face, like head bobbing, super filthy, groovy sort of death metal. That's why I really liked it, and it's on the top 5 this week. Check it out. Coming in at number 4, Alkaloid with Newman. This is progressive metal, and I got a sneak peek of this one too, so y'all know what that means. Already published my review in Metal Digest, and in that review I talked about how extraordinarily diverse this double album is. That's right, 2 discs of music, and yet still there is so many different sounds even across 2 discs. In fact, the only sound that repeats itself across those 2 discs is the extreme death metal parts, but then everything else, it just goes the full gamut. I'm talking like 80s hard rock, I'm talking prog, I'm talking gent, I'm talking jazz. I mean, just every sound imaginable. It's almost too diverse. It walks right up to that line where it might be incohesive, but stops just short. Really impressive stuff from these guys. Check it out. Coming in at number 3, Violent Life, Violent Death. Is that like my lifestyle determines my death style? I don't know. The name of the album is Break, Burn, End, and this is metalcore from North Carolina. And when I say metalcore, especially with a new release. You might think like modern metalcore where the verses are pretty heavy, but then the choruses come and it's poppy, clean singing, and it's not heavy at all. Yeah, that's not this. This is heavy the whole time. I almost want to call it death metal, but it's definitely not death metal because when you listen to the guitars and the drums, it's more on the metalcore side, but it's just way more hardcore. I really appreciate that. The heavier you make it, I'm gonna love it. Coming in at number 2, Signosis. Now, is that Signosis? I'm not sure. Really bad with pronunciations. Text is on the screen, and as always, every band's Bandcamp link will be in the description so that these albums are easy to find. Please support the bands. The name of the album is Mercury, and this is progressive instrumental metal from France. I rarely pick instrumental albums on this show because they're just not really that popular, but this one should be popular because it's not like, look at how awesome our guitar player instrumental music. In fact, there's very few guitar solos on this album. So in order for it to be an instrumental album, and it has very few guitar solos, and you know I love guitar solos, and it has no vocals, for it to keep my attention from the beginning to the end with no guitar solos, no vocals, just instrumental, that means they're doing something right. These songs are awesome, super heavy, the arrangements keep it interesting the whole time. There's all kinds of different riffs coming. In fact, it's kind of like, you think of a song where after the chorus ends and then that super heavy riff hits and you're like, yeah, that's the riff, that's the standout riff from the song. It's like getting those kind of riffs over and over and over again because they have to. They have to keep hitting you like that because it's instrumental. And then in between, there's all these beautiful, like, cello-led sections that just really scratched that nerd itch for me before I started headbanging again. That's why it's number 2. Check it out. And hey, before we get to number 1, I just got something I want to say to you. If you love metal the way that I love metal, then you're in the right place and you should join the Heavy Metal Philosophy community because that's all we do here. Every weekend, we break down the best new metal releases that come out. I always bring you my top 5, my favorite album art, exclusively on YouTube. And then every Tuesday on all platforms is the podcast where we talk about the philosophy and underpinnings of metal. All metal, all the time. You should join. And if you like any of these bands, please hit the like button. It helps spread the message for the bands. Thank you so much. Now we'll do number 1. All right, for longtime subscribers of Heavy Metal Philosophy, this will surprise none of you. My number 1 pick this week is Tomb Mold, The Enduring Spirit. No, shocking. Of course, I am biased because first of all, I'm a Tomb Mold fan. I love death metal. And then also, y'all remember, I interviewed Derek on the podcast for Dream Unending. After I got done with that interview, I talked about what a great guy Derek is and how positive and happy I felt afterwards, which is just, I interview people all the time. And of course, some are better than others, but I've just never felt so happy after talking to somebody.
It's sort of like it's escapism. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
It's a really sacred thing. And I just love it. Like I have a pretty easygoing life. Like I live with my wife and my dog. I have a job that I don't hate. I don't make a lot of money, and that's okay. And I never have any because it's going towards bills and gear. But like I wouldn't trade it for anything because then I just get to sit at my desk and I get to crank out songs and come up with stuff. And the fact that people are willing to like work with me on it is like ridiculous, and I can't trade that for anything. And it's like I just want to make music, man. It's all I want to do.
Derek is just such an awesome guy. Of course, I'm super biased. Dream Unending, huge fan. But let me tell you something. This album is so awesome, I don't think anybody will listen to this album and say, he only picked this number one because of his tune mold bias. Listen to the album. It is amazing. And what I really love about this is you've got the brutality of the tune mold we know and love, but I really hear and feel like Derek took all of the lessons and the musical growth that he underwent during those two Dream Unending albums and brought that to tune mold. So now you've got this airy, atmospheric, proggy stuff in between all of the brutality of tune mold, which just, I mean, come on, guitar nerd here. You know I love it. That's why it's number one. And I'm not done yet because we got album art to talk about. My favorite album art this week comes from the band Shining, which is black metal out of Sweden, and the name of the album is Shining. Link in the description to their Bandcamp because y'all should really change your name. If I Google Shining, guess what I'm gonna get? I'm gonna get the Stanley Kubrick film starring Jack Nicholson. You guys are hard to find because of that name. I know that you didn't name the band after that. I read your bio. I'm just saying, for Google's sake, for people to find your band, consider changing the name. But don't change this album art. This rules. You know, I try to be so like highbrow and artsy fartsy. Every week when I pick the album art, I'm like, I'm above it. I don't pick zombies and dragons and corpse painted individuals standing in the forest. I pick high art. Nah, this time I was spoken to by this gory monstrosity here. I looked at all the other metal albums that came out this weekend, and of course, we've got all that standard stuff. We got monsters, we've got, you know, oil paintings that look unsettling. That standard metal album cover. This one sticks out. I looked at that and I was like, whoa. And that's what I want out of my album art. That's why I picked it. Tell me what you think. What did you think about these bands? It was a super stacked week. So definitely I probably picked some that you didn't pick. It's really hard to pick only 5. Let me know in the comments what you like this week. And make sure you check out that Baroness episode we did of the podcast. Just click right here. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you. After I interviewed Derek on this very podcast, I came when I interviewed Derek.